Hey everybody, this is Chris from Memory Trek. In the previous videos, I was changing out the bearings on my 2007 Cougar fifth wheel, and when I took the hub off, I found this brake was covered in grease. The rear seal in the bearings had failed and dumped grease all over the inside of the brakes and everything like that. So I decided I just was going to replace it. So I ordered some replacement brakes off of eTrailer, and I got the whole piece. So I didn't have to worry about trying to put it together and all that stuff. It was just easy. There's 5 bolts. Just pop it off, bolt it back on there, and you have to redo the wiring. It's relatively simple. And then everything's new, and I'll have that peace of mind that the rig will stop when I want it to stop with the family in the truck. So interesting enough, this is the last wheel that I was doing. I went ahead and did the other ones before I videoed just to make sure I knew what I was doing a little bit before I documented it. And both this wheel and the wheel beside it had the same problem with that rear seal. So a little scary. We did a Colorado trip, June of 2018. We did about 1,200 miles around Colorado dragging this. And come to find out, 2 of the brakes on the trailer are grease soaked, and I'm sure they don't work at all. So that's a little crazy. It's winter, it's cold. It's about 43 degrees in my shop, so it's a little chilly, so hopefully I won't start shivering too bad. So simple process so far, and I'll get to it and show you how to do it. So thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this helped. Okay, so real simple, 5 bolts in the middle. And let's see, it looks like a 9/16 nut on them, and just pop them off. So I guess this one got a little stuck on there, so that's all it took. So as I was saying, it has some wires to it. So the last one I did, I cut up here, and I had to put these connections back on. But this time, I think what I'll do is I'll just cut closer to the brake, because I'm not keeping these. I'm going to throw these brakes away because they're grease soaked. So I'm just going to come in here and cut these right here. Set that over there. So with the new brake, I'll just splice into these 2, and that'll make it a lot easier than the other one I did. So I'll clean off the grease. It's still pretty gnarly in here, and then I'll get to bolt the new one on right here. Get them bolted on, and then I will do the splicing and heat shrink butt connectors, and it'll be good. Bear with me. While I have that off, I think I'm gonna strip these. A little easier to work with. Not as easy with your hands, greasy. There we go. There we go. Okay, so those are ready to go. Okay. So here's the new brake. Got it off at E-Trailer, about 50 bucks a wheel. Highly recommend E-Trailer. Can't say enough about them. Oh, one thing, when you're putting this on, you want to make sure you pull the wires, the connector wires, out before you get it in there and cinch it all tight, because then you get to take it off again. I've been lucky. Normally that's something I would have to redo because I wasn't being careful, but I haven't had that problem yet. Just tighten on these nuts. So, all tight. One thing I forgot to mention is you want to make sure that the magnet is on the bottom. I read that. I'm sure someone that knows why could answer why. I don't know. I just read to do that, so I did that. So, excellent. So next I will connect the two wires. And then we should be good for the brakes. The only other thing we got to do is kind of adjust the brakes after I put the hub back on with my handy dandy brake spoon. That's right there. So we'll do that in a little bit. So cool. I'll move the camera so hopefully we'll get a better angle at trying to do the wiring. Oh no, this'll work great. Okay. All right. So I read that on these, it doesn't matter. There's no polarity to the lines, so it doesn't matter which one these connect to. So you can just connect them, and they should work. All right. So we'll use the blue ones. Gauge is a little bit bigger. It'll fit a little bit better. So you just put that on there and just crimp it. Excellent. And then put that little guy back in that side. There you go. And crimp it. Yep. I give it a little tug, make sure it's good and solid connection. And then we'll do the same for this one. Give it a little tug, and there it's connected. Both of them are connected pretty solid. Now I bought the heat shrink ones mainly because these are going to get wet as you run down the road, and you certainly don't want water and electricity, especially in a braking system. So I've got my heat gun, and I'll just shrink these up. And there you have it. So now it's waterproof, and it should be clear and all good with everything it needs to be. So the next step is to get the hub, put the hub back on, tighten the big nut on there, and we should be good to go. So we'll get to doing that next. Okay, well, I got the hub. The bearings are in. I already sealed the back bearing, and the front bearing is in with the washer, and everything's greased up inside. It's just ready to be put on here. One thing I noticed on the first time I tried this was when I got it on, it felt like the brake shoes were too spread out and the hub wouldn't fit on, and I kind of panicked a little bit thinking, oh crap, I bought the wrong size brake for the hub. I thought I researched it. Everything said it was going to work, and it just wasn't going on. So I started thinking of whether I needed to go back behind and move the star adjustment screw to see if I could shrink it back in there. And when I started to pull the hub back a little bit, this whole thing kind of shifted a little bit like I did earlier there, like that, and then everything went on. So that caught me by a little surprise, but it worked out great. So I thought I'd pass that on. So like I said, the nut in the bearing is in here. Got to be a little careful that it doesn't pop out when you try to put it on. This is doing the same thing. Well, I get to show you guys exactly what I was talking about. There you go. So, finesse. It takes a little extra finesse sometimes to get it on there. So, it is thoroughly greased inside. I read that you're supposed to fill up that cavity about halfway to make sure there's extra grease, so when it spins, everything is good. So, I did. So, I'll let the cotter pin. So I've read a couple different things on how to do this part. Some just say, hey, you just put the nut on finger tight and throw the cotter pin in, and everything's good. Another place I read said, no, you wanna put the nut on and you wanna tighten it. I can't even remember how many foot-pounds they said to tighten it. And that seats that bearing better. That made more sense to me than just letting it kind of free float in there. So that's what I thought I would do. Now I don't have a socket or a wrench that's that big. I don't know how big it is. So I used my channel locks and just did it as tight as I could get it with the channel locks. Hopefully that's tight enough. Like I said, I'm not even sure if it matters. But it made sense to me to do it, so I did it, and I'm sharing that with you guys. So then, I do know that when you're ready to put the cotter pin in, you do not want this tighter than finger tight, because that will create too much friction on the bearing and the spindle somewhere and cause all sorts of pain and problems later. So finger tight, and just put the cotter pin in and we should be good to go. Now, I thought I had everything ready, but I forgot the cotter pin, so I will be right back. All right, cotter pin. This is actually kind of a large cotter pin. I should have gone out and bought new cotter pins, but every time I'm at the store I forget them, so I figured a little large and wrap it around, it probably won't be that bad. As soon as I find the hole. just like that. And then take him, wrap him that way. Take him, wrap him that way. And clean it off. And it should be good to go. Last thing to do is put the dust cover back on. Cleaned it up a little bit better. And the little rubber cover. So even using a rubber mallet, I noticed that these dust covers get bent up pretty good and kind of bad looking. So I think next time I do this, I'm going to go ahead and just buy new ones of these. I think that'd be better. And there you have it. Not a large time project. I am certainly far from a mechanic, but I figured I could do, now that I've done it once, I could probably do the entire project. So the bearings, repacking the bearings, checking the bearings, and if I had to replace the brakes, 45 minutes, an hour each wheel, and that's me. I'm sure someone that had better tools and a better setup could do it much, much faster. But just for the average person, if you wanted to tackle this, that's about how long it would take. A little slower on the first one and a lot faster as you go and you get some experience on how it all works. So last thing to do is put the wheels on, and then right in the back of here there's a little star screw. You adjust the brakes. What I've read is just enough so they kind of grab, so that that's not really grabbing this other one. This other one's actually even too tight. So you just adjust them. When I did it last time, I did it with the wheels on. It was easier to spin. I got a little bit more. This is a little bit too easy, so you'd be cranking a lot more. So, but yeah, pretty easy, good project. I highly recommend it from anybody that's even slightly mechanically inclined. It puts a lot of peace in my mind that I went through this process, and now I understand how the bearings work, when I put the grease in, where that's going, how to check things, how to adjust the brakes. I was pretty ignorant when I started this project. So given the fact that this camper is about 10,000 pounds and I've got my family in the truck behind it or in front of it, I feel better knowing about it. So I was glad I did it. This is a good project. So I hope you guys find this helpful. Again, just as kind of a DIY kind of person, I find these kind of videos very, very helpful versus like a mechanic showing it. They seem to skip over a lot of steps or go by it real quick and not show you. Hopefully with this camera, it caught kind of the things I wanted to show, gave the right detail. Please leave me comments. I know there's a ton I can improve on as I go through some of these projects, but hey, if you like it, please hit subscribe, and thanks for watching. Have a good day.